Castlevania 64 was the first game in the series to make the jump to 3D. Being the first of its kind, it had incredible potential. It worked for Mario, it worked for Zelda, so did it work for Castlevania?
No! No! No!
Castlevania 64 is nothing more than a boring, drab, poorly designed mess. The story focuses on two vampire hunters, Reinhardt and Carrie. Reinhardt uses a whip, and Carrie uses magic. And no, neither of them are fun to play. Again, no Belmont to be found here, which is surprising for the first 3D game in the series. Upon first playing the game, you'll realize that the controls and camera are just awful. The camera always gets in your way, making platforming a total bitch, and the controls are so clunky it's hard to hit enemies and even harder to dodge them. Not to mention some terrible design choices. There's a lot of puzzle solving, and it's so tedious and repetitive it makes them so unbearable to complete. Eventually, you'll find Magical Nitro, which is a necessary item to continue the game. However, it's so dangerous that even jumping will cause it to explode, giving you an instant game over. Yeah, great idea to do that in a platformer. Let's talk about the music. I'm sorry, guys. I just couldn't get through this one. It's so boring and badly designed that it almost ended up putting me to sleep. I'm sure at the end, Dracula teleports around the room, shooting fire at you, and then transforms into whatever the fuck. I don't care. This game is a snooze fest. One of the most boring games I've ever played. But believe it or not, there's actually another Castlevania game on the Nintendo 64. Castlevania Legacy of Darkness. This time around, we play as a werewolf named Cornell, who comes home to his burning village to find out that his sister, Ada, was kidnapped in an attempt to sacrifice her to revive Dracula. That seems to be a trend here in Castlevania games. It looks just as boring as 64, and guess what? It is. However, the camera in this game is so much better. But yeah, there are still annoying puzzles, the game is still gross to look at, and despite Cornell being a werewolf, he's human for a vast majority of the game. Why is this? Well, you can transform into a wolf by pressing the L button, but it completely drains your crystals, which take place of hearts in this game. Think of it kind of like Supersonic, only nowhere near as fun. I didn't end up using it very often. And the music? It's exactly the same as Castlevania 64. Legacy of Darkness is an improvement over 64, but not by much. It's still boring, it's still tedious, it still controls like ass, and it's still just not enjoyable. Take my advice, give both of these games a hard pass. Anyway, come back tomorrow when we jump over to the Game Boy Advance with Castlevania Circle of the Moon, our next Metroidvania game. See you then.